Namaste. Welcome to the Shaman and the Mermaid. This is your spiritual forecast for December 29th all the way through January 12th. And we will step across the finish line to 2021 during this record. I'm very excited. And we're starting off with a Cancer full moon on Tuesday, December 29th. And what are some other names for the full moon?
This is the snow moon or the cold moon, sometimes the winter frost moon, and tree bursting moon.
That's good. We'll probably talk more about that. And we'll be bringing in some alchemy here and maybe some Aleister Crowley. If you're wondering what that is, you can look it up now and maybe we'll reference it later. But let's get to the mantra.
Yes, so this particular 2 weeks has a lot of Mercury influence. So a lot of Mercury's the mind, it's communication, it's expression, it's also listening and observing and gathering knowledge. So it's not always outward, loud, talky. But we came up with, mostly influenced by this incredibly beautiful fox that we saw at my mom's mountain home in Wyoming that came on Christmas Day. And we started doing some research about fox medicine and looking up what fox energy is. And we felt it was probably very symbolic of this energy that we're coming into for the next 2 weeks. And we found a quote, a French proverb really, that we thought was quite appropriate for these next 2 weeks. It is the stupid goose who listens to the fox preach. That's our theme for this time. It is the stupid goose who listens to the fox preach.
You know, often when we're working with animal totems and animal medicine, it's good to meditate or imitate or call in that medicine of that animal, like move like the fox, breathe like the fox, draw the fox, look at pictures of the fox. Things like that will help you understand the medicine that the fox has to deliver, along with the Proverbs from the French times. This full moon, or the snow moon on December 29th, Tuesday, December 29th, is in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer is the sign of one's feeling and intuition. It also relates to your home life and family. And when you start digging even deeper into Cancer, it has to do with ancestral lineages, like connecting to your ancestors of your family, your spiritual ancestors, the ancestors of the earth where you live. And so I feel this full moon, of course there's many ways to go with this, but two of the major things is connecting to the ancestral wisdom of the earth this time. And so it's be quiet like the fox and listen and observe. Listen to what's going on around you. And then the other part is your body, your home where your soul lives, and sense and feel what the body is telling you about what you're receiving and observing and listening to.
Something that's unique about this particular full moon is Cancer is the home sign for the moon. So the moon has slid into its own home, and the energy of this is very homey. So we mentioned at the beginning, this is the cold moon, the snow moon, the winter moon, and that often brings us into home. When it's that kind of weather outside, we tend to go inward. So there's a lot of introspection and lots of inward, being inward, coming inward for this particular time as well. And I think that lends itself to that fox-like energy of just observing and looking around to see what is happening in your environment. The fox is not seen in the daylight too much, although we did see it in daytime at my mom's house. But mostly they're nocturnal. They come out just when the sun goes down and do their hunting and gathering then. So they camouflage, they observe, they look in and see what everything is, and they sit there silently. They're so cunning and so quiet and so crafty in their nature. And so if we are to apply the inward moon, it's just sit and observe before we react. And you'll see as we roll out these aspects that there's a lot of potential for us to get belligerent or demanding or critical or martyrdom or victim or just bleh. Because Cancer is also all the things that Michael mentioned. He gave you a lot of the positive, homebody, intuitive, family oriented, but when not in balance, it can be overly sensitive. It can be super emotional. It can be very childlike and temper tantrum, and I want now, and martyrdom, victim energy. So we don't want to showcase the negative side of that Cancer full moon. We want to bring out more the introspective, intuitive, and listening to our inner voice, our inner wisdom energy at this time. And so kicking off this whole 2 weeks is a big square between Venus and Neptune on Wednesday, December 30th. So Eve of Eve, we get into this potential for what I think looks like martyr victim energy. Venus is self-love, our values. It's how we see ourselves in our body. It's how we see ourselves in our home. It's she's home in Taurus, and she's also home in Libra. Thank you. So she's very earthy and very thoughtful. These are her home places, an earth sign and an air sign. She is squaring with Neptune, who is, of course, the watery and sensitive, although can be very catastrophic in that tsunami kind of delusional, chaotic way. But it can also be that small, smooth, clear spiritual waters that let us really see ourselves. But a square is what's happening. Remember, squares are challenges. So our self-love, our values is squaring potential for delusion, but if we channel it right, it could dovetail our self-love with our spiritual acumen. Going back to the theme, it is the stupid goose who listens to the fox preach. And that can also apply to our little self falling prey to our ego talk or our inner critic. And that's that martyr victim. The stupid goose would be the little self, and the fox preaching in that metaphor would be our ego self telling it what to do. Like, come over here, my pretty, you'll be safe. You want to let your wisdom body take hold as much as you can for these next 2 weeks. You want to allow it to flourish and rise to the surface and be the strong Star of Bethlehem that we just had in that wonderful conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, not too many days ago. We want that bright, shiny soul light to be standing at the forefront of all that we're doing right now. But it could easily get snuffed out in our awareness if we let our little self get Wanner baby and Cancer full moon cry and weep and moan about all that isn't going our way. So that's the very first aspect, Venus square Neptune. Do you have anything on that one to throw in there?
Not too much. You said it well. Venus and Neptune, I think if you think of instruments as octaves of each other. Venus is a little lower note, Neptune is the higher octave above it. Venus is like earth, material, body, the physical realm, and Neptune is the spiritual, the transcendent, no boundaries. But they both relate to love and values and acceptance. And when they're going against each other, then it's the personal self versus the collective, or the ego self versus the high soul, or the oneness energy.
So just keep yourself in check, I guess. Self-love, focus on that first right out of the full moon energy. Just stay inward. Then we come into some more stuff that I think is potential for that martyr victim, and that's on actual New Year's Eve. And this is a big stuff. You want to speak to it?
We don't usually talk a lot about the moon's aspects in the report because the moon makes a lot of aspects because it goes quickly. But this one we wanted to add because on New Year's Eve, December 31st, the moon will be opposite of the board of elders, Pluto, Saturn, and then Jupiter, all within the course of the day. And then it will also be squaring Mars and Uranus. That is a lot of intense energy. The moon, as Katrina said, is our intuition, our personal self. It can be our inner child or our inner sense, our feeling, sensing person, or it can be our little temper tantrum, pouty, victim, martyr person. And it's going to be opposite Pluto, which is the soul and the force of evolution. Saturn is karma and judgment, and Jupiter is what is truth, what do you have faith in. And then when it's squaring against Mars, it's going up against the warrior and the one that wants revenge or aggression when it's out of balance. And Uranus is just totally unpredictable. It's like throwing up a little electricity and the coyote in there with the fox to run around the chicken coop.
So be careful, because again, I feel like this has a lot of potential for us to talk nasty to ourselves on that day, to be that inner critic, and you don't want to do that. And we already do that so much as is. We already beat ourselves up way too much. We degrade ourselves, we tell ourselves we're not enough, we're not worthy, we should be doing more. All of that has high potential on New Year's Eve to explode. That inner critic, because remember the moon is also how you talk to yourself internally, is going to be squaring with the big dogs, and that is the soul of everything. That is what is. Like, how we talk to ourselves is in opposition of what we're supposed to be thinking, doing, feeling, acting. And we have a big potential to be too hard on ourselves. So gentle with yourselves. Let's crawl into 2021 with ease and create a new energy and not bring in the energy of self-sabotage. Moon squaring Mars, Uranus, as he said, Uranus is the one that worries me the most there, because it could be any random throw down. Do you need a lesson learned? You could get a spanking for all that inner critic talk. So again, gentle with yourself as we approach the new year. Then our next biggest aspect isn't until the 4th of January, and this is Mercury conjunct Pluto. So that means Mercury slides right up next to Pluto. I mentioned at the beginning, Mercury is the communicator, the expressor. It's also the listener. It's the thinker. And it's the mind. Mercury is the mind stuff. And it's going right up next to the soul stuff. And so I'm going to say the theme again. It is the stupid goose who listens to the fox preach. When Mercury goes up to Pluto, tune out your TV, tune out all the yakety yaks that are talking in your ear this way, and you're feeling like you're on a tug of war, you don't know who to believe, family or friends or TV and the Democrats and the Republicans and the whats and the whats. Shh, listen, observe, feel your own feels, let your soul and your inner listener connect. That's a big day, Monday, January 4th, for just listening to your soul self. You have something on Mercury Pluto to say?
Mercury is the energy of Quicksilver in a lot of traditions, particularly the alchemical traditions. And Mercury, as an archetype, is the one that can go between the soul realms and the human realms and the upper realms. Pluto is the soul realms. And so that day, the Mercury energy, the messenger, the mind, is being sent down into the soul realms. And there's a couple choices. The mind can keep talking and yapping and goosing and running around, or it can be listen to the soul, because it's going to get a message. And the soul uses Mercury as the messenger to the body and to your personal ego self. if the mind is clear, if Mercury is clear, if the Quicksilver is clear, then the message comes in with little antenna right back to the personal self, and the message is ready. And by the way, they're in the sign of Capricorn when they're coming together, and Capricorn is your karma. This is not good or bad, but it's talking to you from the karmic realms, and it's saying, or it can be Dharma. What is it that you need to understand and hear at this time?
I like the analogy of getting our antennas tuned in, and I think that's going to happen in a couple aspects, really succinctly. We'll talk about that when Mercury moves into Aquarius. But on January 6th, that's the next big aspect. Mars is going to move into Taurus, and I think this is a great day for many reasons, and I'll break that down in a second. And Libra, half moon. So balance. The moon is in half moon, and it's in Libra, which is about, the balanced energy already. So I think that's bringing a lot of sattva, to use one of the gunas in Sanskrit, balanced energy or harmonious energy. Now back to Mars moving into Taurus. It's been in Aries, its home sign, for 6 months, because it entered and went retrograde through it, and then it went back direct, and now it's finally leaving its home sign. Typically Mars is only in a sign for 2 months. It was in its home sign for 6 months. So it's been like fiery, tenacious warrior in a fiery, tenacious warrior sign with its sister Eris very close by. And now it's moving into grounding, settling, earth-based Taurus energy that's about values, it's about home, it's about real estate. If you're looking to buy property, I think that Mars energy of taking initiative and doing something, moving into the earth sign of Taurus, which is about home and earth and Mother Nature. It's a much better time for looking to real estate if you're for that, but that's a sidebar. I think Mars moving into Taurus, remember I said Venus, that's one of her home signs. There's a little more of like a loving energy. Like we can just let go of the fight a little bit of Mars that's been in Aries, and we come into this like nurturing home, and Mars can get a hug from Taurus and feel loved a little bit and lick its wounds a little bit. It doesn't have to be so tenacious. Mars is always going to be a fire sign, and Mars is always going to have that initiative warrior energy, but it doesn't have to be full blast. And I think we're going to feel a big exhale or a little bit more balance when we come into that on January 6th. Then we move into January 8th, and I've already alluded to those. This is a big day because that's when Mercury moves into Aquarius, and those antennas can perk up. Why would the antennas perk up in Aquarius?
Oh, that's a really good question. Mercury moving into Aquarius. Aquarius and Mercury both have to do with transmission of things and messages moving through space and time. Mercury is most associated with the sign of Gemini and Virgo, but we'll focus on the Gemini piece. And Gemini is about receiving, transmitting information. Gemini is the network and connecting into the internet or interweb of things or interconnection of life. And Aquarius is that same web, but it's having the eagle's eye view of what does the whole web mean, or what is the meaning of things, or what could be the total sum of all that energy together. And when Mercury goes in there, it's the potential to take flight like the eagle and lift up and look around and be like, what has all of this meant? And it's almost extraterrestrial or star being like to get like, if you came to Earth right now and you took a perspective of what was going on and you weren't a native of this planet, what would you think? What would you understand about all that's happening? And would you see things as in line and balance, out of balance, and why? And Aquarius is sometimes, when it's positive, it's the, I was going to use the word disassociated, but it's the unattached observer. Unattached doesn't mean you don't have feelings, but it means you can do it without being swayed by those feelings. And so Mercury, the mind moving into Aquarius, the positive side, is to take a clear antenna, eagle-eyed view of what's been going on and come into it with the unattached perspective.
The fuzzy, I can't quite get clarity, like the old TVs and you were putting tin foil on the rabbit ears to get it to tweak in, and the fuzz. That's been how we've been feeling for 2020. This is now, we've crossed over into 2021. Mercury moves into Aquarius. We don't need even rabbit ears or tinfoil anymore. It's more of an intuitive antenna that tunes in. It's a deep inner knowing. And we go from intellectual wisdom to intuitive wisdom. And the intellect is background serving us, not the forefront. We've been depending on our intellect, the things that we've studied and learned so deeply. But now we can take this leap. There's this big shift into intuition at this time. Aquarius is also about community. So, and revelation and innovation and evolution. So this communicator, Mercury, the mind stuff, is moving into higher consciousness. And I feel like this is, instead of screaming at the mountaintop who and what you are at this point, stick with that fox-like energy and just observe everything around you. Not taking it as the gospel. That's what we've been doing. Somebody tells us to jump off the cliff and the little lemming goes right off the cliff into the water. Observe nature. Observe your surroundings. Observe other people's reactions to things. Observe the who, the what, the where, and the how. And do it from that fox-like perspective, in camouflage, in silence, in that cunning, crafty kind of way that you all have. Everybody has that intuitive ability to tune in, instead of the knee-jerk reaction of so-and-so said to do this, so I'm going to punch you in the face. Like, think about it from the intuitive level. Does that feel right to react that way? That, to me, is Mercury into Aquarius. Higher consciousness thinking for the good of the whole, for the collective, for the community, for everybody, not just our individual selves. So I think this is a big time scope. Tune in, antennas up. And then also on that same day, Venus is going to move from Sagittarius into Capricorn. What do you think of that one?
I think that one has a lot to do with listening to the body. And what is the body telling you? Venus is your physical body and your physical existence, and Capricorn is karma, wisdom, duty, responsibility. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's what judgment and policies and things happen. So what has your body been telling you this whole time? It's another one of these tune-in aspects. It's listen to your personal self, because there's wisdom, Capricorn is wisdom, within your body. Has your body this whole time been feeling well? Have you been getting intuitive hits that say this doesn't feel right? Are you getting your own sovereign indication that says what I feel is different than whatever is being put out by talking heads or people who are seemingly in positions of authority, who says you have no authority because you're you? And you say, I don't feel that. That's not true. I'm a divine being of the universe. I've come here from the stars. I know things. The wisdom traditions all across the planet say I'm a child of the earth, and that my body is sovereign and divine and unique, and that inside of every cell and all my DNA is the holographic version of the whole universe. And within me, if I'm able to tune in, I know. That's it. I know.
For me, Venus in Capricorn says, my body, my choice. That's what I think it means. But I won't go into that one right now. That's for another talk. Also, on that same day, Mercury is going to square Mars. So now think about that. Mercury is the communicator. We're trying to get our antennas up. We're trying to listen. We're not trying to knee-jerk reaction. And it's squaring, our expressive self is squaring our aggressive self. That is potential for us to not be quiet, to not listen. That has all the kindling and firewood for a big explosion of, you don't know me, you don't like me, nobody likes me, I hate you, blah, blah, blah. All that kind of martyr, victim, blaming, shaming, getting a big fat fight with little self versus little self. It's the stupid goose who listens to the fox preach. So just avoid any of that as best you can. January 8th, big day. I think it's a silent retreat time. That would be a good thing to do, like a Vipassana or something, some such.
There's a Lao Tzu quote, those who know don't say, and those who say don't know.
Perfect for that day. Love it. Moving on. We got Saturday, January 9th. This is Venus trine Mars. That's nice. That's a good one. We'll talk about that. On that same day, we also have Mercury. Remember, the expressive one is going to now, it was talking to Pluto, the soul. Now it's going to saddle up next to Saturn and Aquarius. And both Mercury and Saturn and Aquarius. What is that?
The Mercury and Saturn?
Mm-hmm.
Mercury conjunct Saturn is your mind or your thinking or your communication conjunct karma and wisdom. It's an opportunity to tune into that sovereignness of the inner self and then allow it to percolate through into the mind in the right way. It's letting the messenger sit with the message. I think it's still going with that Vipassana, be quiet, meditate, sit in the space, pray, go out into nature, tune in, maybe even journal and write, but it's still that quiet phase of letting it be and letting the wisdom come through, but processing it, sitting with it. You don't have to speak immediately. You don't have to act immediately. This is like a new moon aspect. When Mercury and Saturn are together, it's like the beginning of a cycle. And so it's like before the cycle starts to evolve and come to its fullness or grow out, you want to understand what it is that's coming out of it.
I like that. For me, the Mercury conjunct Saturn piece is listening to my inner critic, because Saturn is the judge, the disciplinarian, the principal of the school, and if they're together, I can just listen to all my judgments. What judgments have I been holding on to? What criticisms? What do I think is law and order? What is right way that I've been holding on to that maybe no longer holds any value, that is needing that Aquarian revolutionary change in force? And now I have a chance with Saturn and Mercury together to make some new discernments. Mercury is very much a discerner, especially when he's home in his sign Virgo, but Mercury makes choices, and Saturn is about karma. Make some good karmic choices and do it in that silent introspective way that he's talking about. And then I mentioned already Venus trine Mars, that's like a little love fest potential between self and self, or between self and other. What do you have on that one?
I like myself.
Like yourself, yes, that's beautiful. And you know, this is the masculine and the feminine, or the solar and the lunar, or you know, Romeo and Juliet. They're having a positive moment. This is a trine, so that's harmonious. They're working together. I like to think of it in the chakra situation as Ida and Pingala are evenly snaking up Sushumna channel, piercing the chakras and awakening us. There's not something out of balance in our masculine and feminine energy. Everything is flowing harmoniously. The two snakes are working together. So that's helpful for keeping our karmic choices in the upright position January 9th. Then we move on, Monday, January 11th. We're almost there. Then the last of the elders, Mercury is going to saddle up next to Jupiter. And what does that one mean?
Jupiter are things that you are questing for. The truth, spirit, understanding, expansion, whatever it is that is desiring up from the soul, hopefully, is what Jupiter represents. And Mercury is investigating it, being curious, being adaptable, being open and listening. And this is another one of those quiet aspects. It's like listen to the inner self. Jupiter also connects deeply to nature and the sign of Sagittarius. And so if you need help that day, go connect to Mother Nature. Go sit outside. Go down by the river. Go listen to the wind in the pine trees.
Jupiter for me is faith and as you mentioned, vision, questing, trusting, all of that. It's bigger teacher energy. It's like stepping outside of yourself. Think of that amazing college professor you have that just blew your mind and radically changed your opinion on maybe even what your major was, and you went down to the department and changed out of psych and went into environmental studies or something because one person had such a strong influence on you. Jupiter is the big guru. It's your highest wisdom self, and Mercury is saddled up next to it. And to me, this is like, listen to the wise ones and not the goose, or not the fox. The stupid goose listens to the fox preach. In this particular analogy, Jupiter is not the fox. And we want to be listening to our own wisdom. And so I think of it like you've heard the word sheeple. It really just says so much. You don't even have to explain that. You don't need to look it up in an urban dictionary to understand what sheeple is. Don't be a sheeple. This is a day to really listen to your inner knowing and trust what your highest wisdom has to offer you. And that's January 11th, and then the next day takes us right into a brand new cycle of energy to kick off 2021. So that Capricorn New Moon will be the seed-setting new moon energy for 2021. And it's in an earth sign. What do you think of that one?
1 year to the day of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction on that same date of 2020.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
So
absolutely.
this is a whole new, it's reactivating that point. January 12th, 2020 was the day that the first COVID death was confirmed, and it was the day that China released its sequencing of the COVID genome. We've mentioned that before. Not going down that rabbit hole too much, but whatever you feel about all that, this is a reconnection to that point.
So we get a new moon start on it. So January 12th is a great day for ceremony and setting intention. And we'll see you on that Capricorn new moon, January 12th.
Namaste.
And Happy New Year.